first step in the procedure would be to drain the oil and the fuel from the unit, because during part of the procedure it will be tipped completely upside down. The next step that you would do would be to remove the depth regulator, and then the upper handlebars. Then you would put the wheels all the way to the transport position, and then you would stand the tiller up on the handlebar end. Next step is to remove the tines. The wheel mount assembly and the adjustment block on the back. For that you would use the 5/8 socket, the next step is to remove both the front and the rear belt guard covers. When you do this, you need to make note of the fact that these two bolts are longer than the rest of them. They're longer than the others. Where I'd start out on this is I go to the back two. They are a through bolt that goes through the lower handlebar. You need to take those off first. There you would use a 13mm socket on the nut end of it and a 12mm wrench on the head of the bolt. Now we can remove the 6 smaller bolts. Then lift both of the covers off. That's held on with, there's 2 long bolts that run through the transmission assembly, and there's nuts for them on the other end. And there we would use a 13mm socket and a 13mm wrench. The next step is to remove the 2 bolts holding the front bumper assembly to the frame of the unit, and that we would use a 12mm socket and a 13mm wrench. With all of the bolts removed, now you can proceed to tip the entire assembly, the transmission, the handlebar assembly, the rear handlebar mount, or lower rear handlebar mount, and the bumper away from the main body. And as you're doing it, you pull the belt from the engine pulley and then tip the unit all the way up. You can remove the belt. It has to be tipped up far enough so that the belt will clear the tensioner pulley. Now, once this has all been disassembled, you can get your new belt, put it over the transmission pulley, and slowly tip the entire transmission bumper assembly back down, making sure that the belt is back in the groove on the tensioner, and then slide it over the engine pulley and push everything back into place. As you are putting the bolts back in to hold the transmission and bumper assembly in place, you need to put them all in first before you tighten any of them, just to eliminate any alignment issues. Next, I would install the transmission bolts along the transmission and the tail mount. These bolts, you may have to tap them with a hammer a little bit to get them completely through, just again due to the fact that they're going through multiple openings. And once these bolts are all in place, then you can proceed with tightening all 6 of them. The next step would be to reinstall the dirt shields. Again, with all of the bolts holding both the front and the rear dirt shield in place, you need to start them all before you tighten, in order to so you do not run into any alignment issues. The bolts do need to go in the holes where the 2 shields overlap each other. The rear wheel assembly, a wheel mount. We would take the lever that allows you to adjust your wheel position, open it up so that the mount can go in, the bottom part of the mount can go in, and slide the other part together with it. At this point, put the wheel all the way into the transport position, just to make it easier to stand it back up on the back end. When reinstalling the tines, you need to make sure and note the direction of rotation on them. There is a blunt edge on the tine itself. There is an edge that is slightly sharper. That edge needs to face towards the front of the tiller or in the down direction, both the same, to be on the proper side. If they are installed on the wrong side of the tiller, it will adversely affect the way that they till. It can create belt issues, overheating the transmission, and other problems. Now we can tip the sensor back all the way up. And then we'll put the wheels in the middle position so that it doesn't want to tip forward, and then reinstall the upper handlebars. We should have put the depth regulator back on it before we tipped it all the way up. However, you can put it on in this position by tipping the tiller forward, sliding the depth regulator back up into the bracket. And then reinstalling the pin. At this point, you can refill with oil and gas, run the unit, and adjust the belt tension with the mechanisms up here as needed.